town, get up, get down. New York is a union town, get up.
My name is Caitlin Liss. I am a rank and file member of SWC UAW 2110, Student Workers of Columbia. And I want to thank you all so much for coming out and being here. This is a really important moment in our fight. We have been on strike for 8 weeks now. We recently passed 50 days on strike. That's 8 weeks of having Columbia stonewall our negotiations, disrespecting our bargaining members, depriving our students of the education that they're paying an arm and a leg for, threatening to fire us, which is illegal, and misrepresenting our position. They've sacrificed half a semester of teaching and learning, half a semester of relative stability, all because they refused to use their $14.3 billion endowment, which, by the way, their assets also increased by $3.33 billion during the last year. So all to protect that pile of money that they're sitting on and hold on to the status quo. On Wednesday, our bargaining committee presented the Columbia administration with a package that we think can end this strike. We made significant compromises, all in the interest of presenting the administration with an offer that they can accept. Now we need your help more than ever, which is why we have asked you all to come here today so that we can share a history of our fight, hear from some supporters who are here joining us today, and give you some information about where we are in negotiations and how you as supporters can help us win this contract. So thank you all so much for being here. And I think with that, I'm going to turn things over to Kit Hermanson, who is another rank and file member of the unit, who's going to walk us through a short history of our unit and what we've been fighting for. So over to you, Kit.
I'm Kate Hermanson. I use they, them pronouns. I am a PhD student, a TA, and a student worker in the religion department at Columbia University. And I've been on strike for 8 weeks now, like we all have, which has been amazing. And we would like to stop because we would like Columbia to give us a good contract. This fight started before I got here. I'm a fifth year. Yep, I think that's right. I think I'm a fifth year. But our story starts in 2014. In 2014, it was not a guaranteed right for private university student workers to unionize. We did not have that legal right, and it didn't matter. We fought for it. People started talking in January, and by June, we had 1,700 graduate workers supporting unionization in a card drive. In December, we asked, there was a large group and a formal letter given to Columbia University and asked them to voluntarily recognize our right to unionize and to voluntarily recognize the union. And unsurprisingly to no one, they said no. So after that, we fought with them for a year. We fought it out in the NLRB courts. And even during the Trump administration, the NLRB decided to overturn the previous precedent in a case called Brown, probably from Brown. They overturned the previous precedent, and we won the right to unionize as student workers in a private university, something that had been shared by, or that had been enjoyed by public school, public higher education workers for some time. And since then, the New School, Harvard, Brown, Tufts, Brandeis, Boston College, Yale, American, Georgetown, Loyola, Chicago, University of Chicago, and more have all won union elections. And especially shout out to NYU, who was voluntarily recognized by their university and who has an amazing, awesome, supportive union, and is really like setting the bar for what we expect from New York City higher education institutions as to how they should treat their workers. We tried to get Columbia to come to the table, and they continued to appeal to the NLRB and not recognize us as workers, until finally in 2018, when they had refused to bargain with us for over a year, we had our first strike. About 1,500 graduate students, as well as increasingly other types of student workers, walked out, and we were supported by people in the community. We were supported by our undergrads. We were supported by our faculty. It was a much shorter strike. It was a 1 week long strike. but this was by the time I was here, and it was a fantastic show of the kind of solidarity and camaraderie that would evolve into what we have in our union. We bargained for a while, and in the spring, unfortunately, a tentative agreement was reached with a previous BC and bargaining committee, and the university that was seen by most, it's fair to say, of the people in the unit as not reaching our core demands. And this was something that was really risky, turning down a tentative agreement that had been agreed upon at the table, and then bringing it to the unit organized to turn it down, so that, because we knew we deserved better, and we knew that we could get more from the university. We could get a living wage, we could get non-discrimination, harassment protections, we could get dental, we have teeth. So against all odds, and against lots of pushback from the university and others, we turned down that tentative agreement, and we grew our union, and we became the student workers of Columbia. Now, not only graduate students, but undergraduate hourly workers, master's students, hourly workers, anyone who engages in teaching and research work as granted to us in our unionization clause by the NLRB. Fast forward to now, in the fall, some unions or some circumstances may think that we would have gotten weaker or divided by the no vote in the spring, but we are strong. We are the largest strike currently in the country. We have been going for 8 weeks, and we are not giving up, and we are not ready to give up on getting a contract that meets our core demands, not only for ourselves, but for educators, researchers, and workers everywhere. We're tired of these arguments that because we are educators, we are not allowed to demand more for ourselves, demand fair working conditions, and that we need to be a martyr for our students and for the mission of education. We cannot educate unless we have everything we need to live outside of our role as educators. And so that's where we are now. Thank you all for being here at this super historic moment in the strike. Yesterday, we dropped our package. Today, there's this digital rally. We're waiting for a counter proposal, and we're looking towards y'all to help push Columbia in the right direction.
Thank you, Kit, so much for that history of where we've been and hopefully where we're going. I now want to turn things over to some supporters who we have in the audience who we've asked to say a few words. So the first person we're going to be hearing from is Beverly Brakeman, who is the director of UAW Region 9A. So Bev, we're going to turn it over to you.
Hi. Thank you all so much for this opportunity. It's so exciting to be here. As we approach the end of another semester and a calendar year, I can only imagine how much anger and frustration you have towards Columbia for its refusal thus far to put a fair package of proposals on the table. UAW members and leaders across Region 9A and many, many allies share your frustration. At the same time, your ongoing struggle for a fair contract is inspiring and reminds all of us of the true spirit and mission of our union and the labor movement. We support you in this fight. It has not been an easy road to get to this point, but your campaign and struggle continues to be both a product of and major driving force for a large and growing movement among academic worker organizing. Columbia student workers have been organizing and fighting to have a union for more than 20 years, as you all well know. The revival of organizing at Columbia in 2014, nearly 8 years ago, and landmark NLRB decision in 2016 built on earlier years of struggle, but significantly inspired the largest wave of private university graduate worker organizing ever. Winning the decision was one thing. Successfully pushing back on Columbia's aggressive anti-union campaign and voting by an overwhelming 72% in favor of UAW representation was an even bigger step forward and sent a clear and strong message to the academic 1% that student workers and their unions. So you sent a strong message to the academic 1% that student workers and their unions were not going away. But Columbia still didn't listen, filing objections to stall certification of the union for a year and then refusing to bargain even after NLRB's certification. Through a creative and dynamic strategy of collective action, including a strike and a second potential strike and coalition work with other unions, We not only won recognition here at Columbia, but also preserved the NLRB decision through the Trump years. None of this would have happened without student workers at Columbia leading the way. But then we all know that Columbia ultimately moved very, very slowly in negotiations and engaged in a variety of practices that led to more strike action, as well as numerous allegations and bad faith bargaining. After all that, a majority of you exercised your voice and rejected Columbia's offer last spring and continued the fight for a fair contract. The fight for a fair contract in recent months and the renewed strike action has once again showed student workers at Columbia are at the center of this growing movement. The time is now for Columbia to reach a fair agreement. Student workers have joined together and sent a clear message. Faculty have joined in support. Students have told Columbia to reach agreement. Alumni, parents, elected leaders, Danny DeVito, and even the Wall Street Journal have weighed in. Region 9A supports you, and we are proud to have supported workers in this sector for 3 decades as you play a growing role in our great union, and will continue supporting you. We call on Columbia to do the right thing and reach a fair agreement immediately. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Bev. So I think now we're also joined by Robert Jackson, who is our state senator and has been out supporting us for this whole fight. Senator Jackson, there you are. Now we are going to hear from you.
So first, let me, as I said before, I am not happy to be here. We should not be on this Zoom talking about a last offer to Columbia. The Student Workers Union Local 2110 has been out there rallying, campaigning, letters from the individual members about the impact this is having on their dental and health benefits. I mean, what does Columbia want? They want to break the back of the union? Never will happen. And that's why we're here today, in order to give support to all of the people that are on strike. I worked 23 years for a labor union, the New York State Public Employees Federation. And when I was a staff member, I was the vice president of the staff union going back then. As a member of the city council, as the member of the current member of the state senate, I support union workers. This is the opportunity for us to stand united, not only with the SWC, UAW local, but all unions, because when one union is on strike and their employer that has an endowment of $14.3 billion, and in 2019, the endowment was $10.9 billion, give me a effing break. There's no reason why Lee Bollinger, the president of Columbia, and the trustees, in which I know 2 of them personally, Rolando Acosta, who is appellate court justice in the First Department in New York City, and Sheena Wright, who was the head of the transition team for Eric Adams, and now is a deputy mayor for strategic planning. Come on, you know what it is in order to be workers. You know what it is, the needs of people of color and people that are struggling to survive. These are graduate students that taught maybe some of you when you were in as an undergrad at Columbia. Don't they deserve the respect and dignity of workers as far as a decent contract? The obvious answer is yes. Lee Bollinger, Board of Trustees, do the right thing on behalf of the people that make Columbia what it is. Give them their contract. If not, we will constantly be at your door, at your office, ringing your telephone, doing your email. When you see you in the street, we're going to buttonhole you until you do the right thing on behalf of the SWC UAW. Please, let's make this a ho, 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 Merry Christmas for everyone and a Happy New Year. Peace and blessings, my brothers and sisters. I'm with you all the way.
Slave! You slave!
Thank you so much, Senator Jackson. Okay, now I think we have...
me asking a question,
So now we have...
Why are you muting me?
Keep going, Caitlin.
Now we have Ferris Sufran Forrest, who is the assembly member representing the 57th district. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Caitlin. I am, like Senator Jackson, I'm not happy to be here, but I am damn excited to be here. Because when we stand up and we fight, what do? We end up winning. We end up winning it all. Let's be real. Let's talk about Columbia for a second. With how much? I think it was $1.3 billion endowment, right? But then let's not forget also, Columbia is one of the largest landlords. And you know I don't like landlords. I don't like them at all. Once I smell a landlord, it's a problem. But when you have the largest landlord, $1 billion endowments, and you have people still struggling to ask for what? For dental? For health care? No, that ain't right. That ain't right. It smells stink and it stink and it stink. So it's time that we stand up, and we've been doing it for 8 weeks, and we're going to keep on doing it until they realize that the people that they stand on, the backs of the workers, that these backs don't break. They don't break. They don't yield. They're not going to stay quiet. And so we're going to keep on calling, keep on striking until the demands are met. I am so proud of everyone who is here. I am proud, not only because, when we talk about workers, but young workers. This is the example that we need to show for other places, other industries, other colleges that need the light, that need the example of what to do next. When they're feeling the pressure, they know what to do now. They need to strike, and get what they need and get what they deserve. And then also, once you've been on strike, guess what? Now you know how to do it other places too. So I encourage you, my young, beautiful people, to take the lessons learned here and continue to teach others how to fight for their rights too. I love you all. I'm here. I'm supporting you all. I will always be a nurse. And I always will remember being a union nurse. And so I'm excited to be here, and I'm so proud of you all. I'm here with you, standing with you. And David says hi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and hi to David. Okay, up next we have the co-chair of New York City DSA, Jeremy Cohen, is with us. Hi, Jeremy.
Hello, hey strikers, can you hear me okay? So I just wanted to say what an honor it is to be with you today and to have been with you at various points through the strike. I want to one-up one thing that Farrah said. Well, let me say one thing about myself. So I'm co-chair of NYC DSA, and we are the biggest chapter and the biggest socialist organization in the country, and all our 7,500 plus members stand with you in this struggle. We are so amazed by what you're accomplishing. We're so amazed by what you've accomplished. You're the biggest strike in the country in the middle of a period where strikes are popping off in this country in general. Incredible. I'll also say I am an academic worker. I have formerly of GSOC, so same local, UAW 2110 when I was at NYU. So I know from personal experience a few things. One, how these universities stonewall and refuse to give up the goods unless we strike and resist. Two, about how important it is that your work happen. Like academic workers, we are the ones who make the universities run. It's us. It's the research assistants. It's the teaching assistants. And our brothers and sisters, secretaries, sanitation workers. You know who it's not? It's not the deans. It's not the trustees. They're the ones who sit atop the university bureaucracy, buy up some of their property, but they're not the ones who make the university run. One other thing I know about being an academic worker is that it's a labor of love, but it's also labor. And you know what? I just think it's important to remember, on the one hand, you've been withholding your labor. You're not teaching. You're not doing the thing you love to do. But on the other hand, you're also teaching your students and you're teaching the world about the importance of struggle, about the importance of standing up and fighting for our rights. So it's really an honor to be with you. and to be with you in this struggle. I'll say NYC DSA is 100,000% behind you in telling Columbia it's about time. Live up to your bargain. Give people the basic rights. You say that you're a leader. You say you believe in the value of ideas, education, yada, yada. Well, put your money where your mouth is. It's about time, Columbia, and we are going to be with you struggling. I'll just end by saying, two things occur to me when thinking about Columbia and your strike. One, in the immortal words of Shelley, ye are many, they are few. And two, in maybe a little bit more of a contemporary parlance, Columbia University, bing bong. Get off your ass. It's time to come to the negotiating table and let these workers get back to their work.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. We really appreciate you being here. So up next, we have City Council member from District 7, or are you still City Council member-elect? I can't remember.
I think I'm still elect.
You're still elect. Okay, City Council member-elect, soon-to-be City Council member from District 7, representing Columbia, Sean Abreu. Thank you so much for being here.
Caitlin, thank you so much for your hard work. Would, of course, like to extend my hello to Senator Robert Jackson. I'm actually succeeding his previous post in the council, so I have, a lot of things to do to follow in his footsteps. I'm Sean Abreu. I am a graduate of Columbia Class 2014 and the council member-elect for Morningside Heights. I'm here to urge Columbia to respect critical work done by student workers and offer them a fair contract. Columbia prides itself, as we all know, as being an institution that leads, but it's time that they acted like a leader. We need them to act like a leader. That means giving students, workers, fair wages, protecting them from discrimination, and treating union negotiations with the seriousness that they deserve. It's time for Columbia to accept UAW's fair and absolute final offer. I want you to know, UAW, I'm with you at every step of the way. Any support that you need me to write to someone, you need me to knock on somebody's door, you let me know what you need, and I'm going to be there for you. I'm cautiously optimistic because of all the work that you've done. And I am confident that all of this work is going to culminate into something great, and hopefully is Columbia accepting your final offer. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sean, for being here. So we have now the president of the Columbia Postdoctoral Workers, UAW Local 4100, Cora Bergantinos Crespo. Cora, are you here? Yeah, there you are. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Caitlin. So yeah, I'm the president of CPW, Columbia Postdoctoral Workers, also a member of Socialist Alternative, extending the solidarity of my organization. And here I am again on behalf of postdocs and associate researchers at Columbia who support all our student workers in SWC. And first, I also want to extend the support and solidarity from CPW members who at our last membership meeting voted to donate $1,000 to your strike fund. So big solidarity and support to all of you. And as I said last time that I speak at one of our rallies, I want to reiterate that your long fight, which I think Kit, sorry if I'm mispronouncing, explained really well. It's a really inspiration for all of us and probably for many more in campus. We work alongside graduate workers in labs and research groups across the university, and we really understand all the challenges that you face as Columbia workers. And we also understand how difficult Columbia makes to reach a fair agreement. We spent 16 months of tedious and challenging negotiations, and even as many postdocs and associate researchers volunteer their time to help the university in the worst time of the pandemic to really help the people of New York, Columbia refused to agree for a fair contract for months. And we were only able to reach a fair agreement by beginning plans to take a strike authorization vote, at the same time that Columbia wanted all the researchers to come back to the labs. And I think that's not coincidental. Really, we all need to push Columbia to their limits. And I think that now it's the time that Columbia reach a fair agreement with all of you. You deserve fair compensation after all the wealth that Columbia has accumulated that Caitlin explained at the beginning. You deserve a fair process of to address discrimination and harassment, that, it's just extended on academia, and the same that, they were forced to give to us. You deserve also improved childcare subsidies if we want, parents and people to be able to be in academia and thrive and continue with their lives. And also deserve protections to have a strong union into the future, because we know that having a contract is just the beginning to continue enforcing our rights and defending our rights as workers. And it's not just a question of fairness, which it is, but it's also very necessary for all of us to continue doing the research that, let's be honest, it's what makes this institution a worldwide recognized institution. And as many of you know, probably at the beginning of December, 17,000 new PhD workers got recognition by the University of California. That's almost 20,000 more workers added to UAW, which is now, I don't know exactly, but I think that at least 80,000 academic workers strong. And I think that this can allow us to really create a united voice of academic workers across the country from coast to coast to continue fighting our rights in Colombia, but also beyond Colombia, the federal government, the NIH, and so on and so on. So I think that in this context, there is not more exciting moment to be an academic worker in this country, to be honest, and also to be an academic worker in Colombia, where we can continue fighting together side by side to defend our rights as workers. We want neutral arbitration for non-discrimination and harassment, and you deserve to have that in your contract. You want transitional funding to help students leave a bad working environment, the right to grieve anti-bullying policy that is currently under discussion, and we will win that in our next contract that it's little over a year away. And much more that we can continue working, more basic workers' rights and parent rights, more rights for international workers, real protections against bullying, and continue keeping this university accountable, enforcing our rights and improving our working conditions until we are treated as we deserve according to the millions that we create for this university on a daily basis. So I just want to end that it is inspiring to be here, and it is exciting to be here, and when we fight, we win.
Thank you so much, Cora. It's really great to have support from other unions, and especially, other unions working on campus in a similar academic environment. We have also here with us today Susan DeCarava, who's the president of News Guild of New York, to bring in some more union solidarity.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so inspiring listening to everyone's comments. And I am, like other people have said, sorry that we are here today for this reason, but excited and inspired to stand shoulder and shoulder with you all in solidarity in your fight for really what should be basic provisions that everyone has who works at Columbia University in the roles that you do. As you stated before, I'm the president of the News Guild of New York, which represents 6,000 media workers at employers such as the New York Times, New York Magazine, the Daily Beast, The Nation, BuzzFeed, and the New Yorker, and many, many more. And it may seem like our industries, our work, and our unions are different. In truth, our struggles are very much the same. Our union has been fighting hard and striking for exactly the same demands as you. We are trying to raise wage floors across the industry so that workers whose labor produces profits for bosses can actually afford to live in New York City. We're fighting for clear and enforceable protections against discrimination and harassment, trying to ban NDAs to silence people who are victims of harassment in the workplace, and ensure that there are proper procedures in place that hold decision makers and policymakers accountable and require our employers to be transparent in how they handle these things. We also understand, we hear this line a lot, that you can't eat prestige. Prestige doesn't pay the bills. Some of you may recall that this was a big part of our successful fight for our first contract at the New Yorker earlier this year. And we very firmly believe, and I'm here today because every worker, whether they're at Condé Nast or the New York Times or Columbia University, deserves a fair wage. We know, all of us here today, that a victory for workers in one workplace is a victory for workers everywhere. And after decades of concessions and labor movement, I think it's really important that you all are providing an example of how we can reclaim the power of the strike. And that's what you all are doing. You are showing us by example, a good example, that when we unite and collectively take action, we can make and win really bold demands from powerful and rich employers, whether that's Columbia University, John Deere, or the New York Times. Your collective actions, your strike is not only inspiring, I think, other academic and university workers and workers across the country generally, you're also standing on the shoulders of and continuing in a really deep and proud tradition of standing up for what is right and what is fair. In ways that have ramifications far beyond your campus. Over 40 years ago, and this is really kind of like a kind of amazing full circle moment for me personally. Over 40 years ago, my mother was a Barnard student who was part of the Black Students Coalition that sat in and protested and ultimately defeated Columbia's attempt to take over Morningside Park and turn it into a segregated gym facility. The students involved in that fight recently held the 40th anniversary symposium a few years ago, and it was so amazing to hear the stories and tactics that they used to beat back the Columbia machine. Most people think, the infamous 1968 protests started with anti-war demonstrations, but they actually started with Black students and community members coming together in coalition and fighting for years and winning against Columbia University. And what this fight today tells me, and what that history tells me and should tell all of us, that the fight never ends. It just changes vectors. And what that means is that you too will win your fight. You will win because you're in this together. You will win because you're fighting together. And as so many people have said, most notably our sister Farah earlier, when we fight, we win. You have inspired so many, including the members of the News Guild of New York, with your unity, with your bravery, and we all stand in solidarity with you in this fight today, tomorrow, and always. Keep it up. Let's go.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's really wonderful and inspiring to hear about how unions are in this together and how we can support each other. I think next we have Jaslene Kaur, who is an organizer who has been out here supporting us and is here again. Thank you so much for coming out, Jaslene.
Yo, hello. Good afternoon, student workers of Columbia. I want to say thank you all for having so much tenacity and bravery in continuing to do this. I remember being there in the spring. I see Farah's out here, all my DSA comrades. I want to shout out Marini Thorne, who's with the local as well. Just an amazing, amazing crop of organizers who I just am so inspired by every single day. And I can't tell you how electrifying it was to be on that picket line with y'all back in the spring semester. And again, at the end of this year, before we had to move digital. Your resolve and tenacity is really unmatched, and you've managed to maintain the largest ongoing strike in the country. There's pride in the union, and you've demonstrated what it means to be a principled organizer for the working class in the face of billionaire bullies at Columbia University. But as I'm sure every single one of you knows, the bosses can't control you. Okay, now I'm a CUNY grad myself, and we'll be coming for the administration in 2022 to win a free CUNY. So from public college to private university, we know across New York City that these boards of trustees and administrators are exploiting workers, professors, and students by gambling our rights away. And we know the institution of the university cannot function when the most important workers are tossed to the sides. I saw it firsthand when the New York Taxi Workers Alliance went on strike. When we occupied City Hall, we held our ground out there for 46 days. We were on hunger strike for 15 days. I myself was on hunger strike for 8 days before my own health deteriorated. And this was a collective effort of deep, deep solidarity and practice among union members, the rank and file, who never showed mercy to the people who exploited our family members. And I see the same strength in every single one of you. And I want you, to never forget the hours that you spent standing in the cold with your comrades. I want you to never forget how it felt bringing new comrades into the fold of this work and being part of this bargaining committee. I want you to never forget the warmth and protection and strength of the union when you're hungry and you're tired. Columbia University has an obligation to do right by you, and they have to swiftly accept this union proposal because we know the numbers don't lie, okay? They've got that multi-billion-dollar endowment, and this agreement that y'all have come to the table with will only cost $19 million a year over 3 years. And that's a drop in the bucket compared to the billions in assets that Columbia accumulates and the land and housing that they accumulate and take away from the working class communities that make Harlem what it is today. Now, I think it's embarrassing that Columbia University can't read the room, that from the Kellogg strikers to UPS workers, they don't understand what y'all know as members of the local, that labor is entitled to all that it creates. Columbia cannot function without the rank and file, and they also cannot function without healthcare and without living wages. So to Columbia University, I want you to know that your job is really, really easy. Agree to the proposal, and you can end this strike now so that workers can have everything they need to lead a dignified life into the holiday season, into 2022, and into many years in the future when you come back to the negotiation table. So again, just solidarity forever to the student workers of Columbia. I was so proud to be there with you on the picket line, and we've had so many victories with labor across the United States, and I can't wait to add you to the fold of those victories too. Solidarity, comrades, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jasly. I think we're going to end today with our speakers portion by hearing from Ellen David Friedman, who is on the board of Labor Notes and has been a big inspiration to us in this fight. So thank you so much for being here, Ellen.
Hey, excuse me, it is a tremendous pleasure, of course, an honor. And what I'd like to do in a couple of minutes is bring in a question that is absolutely essential to this struggle and to this moment in our labor movement, and that is the way in which your fight is about rebuilding democracy. Rebuilding democracy at the ballot box means jack shit if it is not supported by the struggle for economic democracy and for workers' voice in the workplace, for citizens' voice in community. And we know what this project of neoliberalism has been about for the last 40 years. It has been about silencing that voice, removing it, ignoring it through a concentration of power that you are seeing today in the hands of the elites at Columbia. So to rebuild, to fight that, there is nothing else you can do that's more important than what you have done. And it has been a joy to be working with you in this local, to see that you've been willing to do that work, and the work is simple. You have to talk with each other. Got to talk with your coworkers. You have to get your coworkers talking to each other, because when you do, you break down the isolation, the hopelessness, the despair, the sense of inevitability that comes when you are faced with the coercive power of a hegemon like Columbia. You organize in your workplace, at your work site. In the work that I'm delighted that my colleague from Labor Notes is here, Barbara Mataloni, who some of you may know, was elected from a rank and file caucus to be the president of the Massachusetts Teachers Association. And these are lessons that she really taught all of us, which is it's not only that you go and deliver a program to your fellow union members, you get union members talking to one another, building their sense of power through a sense of shared respect. When you do that, you force democracy into spaces that have been de-democratized. That's what allowed you to go out and talk to hundreds of your coworkers last spring and defeat that tentative agreement, which was not acceptable. And listen, I know, and I know many people on this call know, you have had some moments of some hopelessness and fear and despair. What did it mean when Columbia said they were going to replace you? What did that mean to you when you thought, uh-oh, we've already lost half a term of work and income and trying to live in New York City already on poverty wages, and now we've foregone further wages, and now they're telling us either we come off strike or we can't work in the spring. And I know that there were moments of shakiness. And what did you do? Went back out and you talked to each other and you consolidated and you felt your power and you reached out to people outside of you. It's the basis. You held the line. You waited one day longer. You had more confidence in each other than you had confidence in the boss. This is the essence of a fighting union. This is the essence of the labor movement that is re-emerging after many years. It is one that I'm so happy to say in Labor Notes, we kept confidence in over these 40 years that were pretty grim. And we are so unbelievably exhilarated to see it show up in your local, to see it show up with the Deere workers, with the Kellogg's workers, with the distillery workers, with, it's a thing that we can actually believe is really moving through the people. Every single victory is a victory for everyone, but even more importantly, every fight that has a democratic character is a victory that cannot be achieved in any other way. We're making that fight for all of us. We are grateful. We are confident. Stand strong. The victory is very, very close. Solidarity.
Thank you so much, Ellen. It's always really wonderful to hear what you have to say and very inspiring. So I think, we're so happy that you all were able to come out here and speak to us. And as we speak right now, the university is going over our proposal and preparing whatever counter proposal they want to give us, we suspect. And so we just hope that they're seeing how many people in the community, how many elected officials, how many organizers are out here supporting us and paying attention to what's going on. So we really thank you so much for coming out to support and speak. I think now we're going to move on to talking a little bit about what has been going on with the strike and where we are in negotiations. And we're going to start with talking about the unfair labor practices that Columbia has been engaged in. We are engaging in an unfair labor practice strike. And Ethan Jacobs, who is a member of our bargaining committee, is here and is going to speak about those unfair labor practices.
Thanks, Caitlin, and thanks everyone for coming. We really appreciate your support, showing up. The figure of 14 billion has been floated around a lot, and it's really significant because it's not just that Columbia is sitting on this figure and not, using it to fairly compensate us workers. They're actively using these funds to undermine our power as a union, to undermine our ability to organize, to undermine our ability to talk to each other. So I just want to sort of give everyone a brief summary of a series of unfair labor practices that Columbia has committed just in this year. We know, looking back to the history of organizing student workers at Columbia, they've been engaging in these tactics for decades. But I really just want to highlight this year a series of actions that they've taken and that we've filed unfair labor practice charges against. So the first was way back in May. This was less than a week after we had rejected the tentative agreement in the spring. And in the span of less than a week, we got an email sent to the entire community by the provost at the time, ironically a respected labor historian. And this provost announced a wage freeze, a unilateral wage freeze, had not been discussed with our bargaining committee at any point. And the wage freeze was explicitly stated to be in retaliation for our rejecting that agreement. Historically, for the past 10 years or so, everyone had been receiving at least a 3% increase to their total compensation. As of that day, as of May 6th, going forward, that increase was 0%. They followed this up in July by announcing a unilateral change to our compensation schedule. Previously, in previous years, going back decades, a significant portion of our compensation had been dispersed as a lump sum at the start of each semester. And that was really important because people have moving costs, people have to, settle their debts, people need to pay rent. And so everyone was really counting on that lump sum in order to make it by on our total compensation that's way below a living wage in New York City. What they announced was that they would no longer be giving us that lump sum. Instead, that same amount would be dispersed throughout the course of the year, which, deprives us of that immediate access to funds and made going on strike substantially more difficult because they then withheld that compensation for the duration of the strike. They're still withholding this. The third thing that they did during the summer was that they refused to bargain openly with us, with the bargaining committee. Before, all of our negotiations had been open to any SWC members. And this is a really important principle that we've stood behind because we want our membership to have access to the negotiations. We want them to be sort of apprised of what's going on, what moves are being made, just because we're strongly committed to democratic principles and involving everyone in the conversation. In the summer, they announced, no, we're not comfortable with this anymore. We're demanding that we meet in a closed context and exclude these members who had previously had access to the negotiations. So these three things all happened before the strike. And these three things were all important elements that motivated us to authorize a strike. So on November 3rd, we went on strike for these reasons, as well as the various economic and non-economic demands we have for a contract. They followed this up with a series of further unfair labor practices designed to undermine the strike. On November 10th, they threatened to fire an employee, very explicitly in writing, if that person engaged in the strike. On November 15th, it was revealed, because this was the end of a pay period, they refused to compensate employees who were who were on strike, but working in other positions that they weren't striking over that were not included in our bargaining unit. So these are sort of like clerical positions, administrative positions. To this day, many members have not been compensated for work that they've done because they went on strike for other positions. Subsequently, they went forward with actually changing people's employee status on the basis of them being on strike. And finally, most significantly, on December 2nd, everyone at Columbia in an appointed position received an email from the Vice President of Human Resources. And in this email, they threatened employees who were on strike at a certain date with not being able to return to their positions in the spring. They've explicitly reserved, they've claimed that they have the right to permanently replace us. They're disputing the fact that we are on strike for unfair labor practice charges, despite the fact that we've filed charges, we've been explicit about this fact, and they're holding this threat above our heads to try to get us to come off strike. It didn't work. It didn't work at all. The week after the threat, we actually saw, so every week we poll our members to determine if they want to continue on strike. The week after this threat, we actually saw an increase in the proportion of members on strike and off strike who want to continue the strike. These efforts to undermine our strike have been completely ineffective, but we need everyone in the community to really push back against these charges because they're going to continue to engage in illegal practices to undermine our strike and to undermine our power.
Thank you so much, Ethan. And so next up, we're going to talk a little bit about where we are in negotiations and the package that our bargaining committee just offered to the university. And so we're going to hear from Doha Tazi Hamida, who is another rank and file member of our union, is going to be explaining what's in that package and what it is that we're asking for.
Hi, thanks so much for being here, for supporting us. So I want to talk to you today about our demands and most significant, the significant concessions that we have made yesterday in the final package we proposed to the Columbia administration. So first, economic demands. As we all know, and as we've heard for the past hour, Columbia University is an obscenely wealthy institution. Its endowment exceeds $14 billion. It is also an ever-expanding real estate corporation Yet, the student workers without whom the university cannot function as an educational institution lack a basic living wage. So we are asking for Columbia University to provide us with the bare minimum to live in the city. Our last package makes significant concessions. It costs $15.7 million less than our December 7th proposal and $30.4 million less than our November 2nd proposal. It has a total cost of approximately $57.2 million over the status quo over 3 years, which is nothing, it's crumbs for them. So this costs basically just 0.6% of the $3.33 billion that Columbia has accumulated just last year during the pandemic. So Columbia has insisted again and again, we've heard it so many times, has insisted again and again that it has the capacity to give us a living wage. They talk about having the capacity, they have the power and the capacity to do it, but they don't have the willingness to do it. So the aim of our strike for the past 7 weeks has been to bend their will and to force them to do what we're asking them to do. So second, I think it's a different slide. Our second demand. So we are asking for full healthcare coverage that includes dental coverage. This demand, of course, is especially crucial when Columbia runs its business as if we were not living under a deadly global pandemic. But that's not happening. So in our new package, we were forced to make significant concessions by dropping our demand for vision coverage and our mental health care provision. So the third demand, non-discrimination and harassment. This is, again, a fundamental demand for all of us. It's very simple. Columbia should just stop protecting abusers and sexual harassers. Instead, as an institution, Columbia must protect all student workers against abusers and finally accept our demand for neutral third-party arbitration in cases of discrimination, sexual harassment, and power-based harassment. The collective bargaining agreement of the Columbia postdoctoral workers actually includes access to neutral arbitration in cases of discrimination and harassment. There is absolutely no reason why our contract should not. At Columbia's request, we moved our proposal to be on par with the postdocs union, so we have reduced our original request significantly. And so therefore, it's very simple again. We therefore demand Columbia must immediately accept our proposal. They have no other choice. So fourth, recognition. This is the more lengthy. So our recognition article directly references the 2016 certification decision from the NLRB, which was explicitly acknowledged by Columbia in its 2018 bargaining framework agreement with our union. We cannot allow Columbia to renege on this decision, which serves as the very basis of our right to unionize. We must include in our union all workers recognized by the NLRB and by Columbia as currently belonging to our union. This includes casual workers. Already, again, speaking of concessions, already we have cut off most hourly workers targeted by Columbia for exclusion from the economic benefits of our proposal, including subsidized healthcare. So we've already done that major concession. However, now we are insisting that all employees currently recognized under the NLRB have access to our robust protections against discrimination and harassment and other non-economic provisions of our proposal. Being on the books for only 10 hours per week should not be a reason that you're subject to harassment. So we are committed to not leaving any student worker behind. Again, a very simple ask. Fifth, and that's the last part, agency shop. Agency shop with fair share fee. So all unions on campus at Columbia have an agency shop provision for union security, which means that all workers represented in the bargaining agreement contribute dues or fees to the union. Without an agency shop clause, the power of our union and our very ability to enforce the terms of any agreement we come to with Columbia would be significantly undermined. So this is a crucial issue. So in fact, our proposal on union security is technically one step short of agency shop, in that employees in our bargaining unit would not be adversely affected or disciplined in their capacity as students or as employees. If any student worker chooses not to pay agency fees, they would only be required to contribute to a health fund established by Columbia and available to all student workers, regardless of their membership in our union. So again, Columbia's resistance to this basic demand is yet another aggressive attempt at union busting that we must reject unconditionally. So finally, I'd like also to reiterate that for us, all of these demands are equally important, equally fundamental, and that our unit is not really ready to concede on any of them. And this is why we're asking all of you to support us at really, this is the most critical moment of our strike. Not only, these are critical hours of our strike, so the next hours are extremely critical. So thank you so much for your support and for attending this rally today. And yeah, I think now Caitlin will tell you in more detail about what you can do very practically to help us right now. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Doha. That was fantastic, and I think that you really got the message across that we have given Columbia a proposal that is extremely reasonable, extremely easy for them to implement, and that they could accept right now and end this strike. We have made a lot of compromises that we didn't want to, but we've done in the hopes that we can end the strike and get back to work. And so what we really need now is some support from the community and pressure on the administration to take this package, because we have really been working in good faith to try and give them a package that can end the strike, because we've been on strike for 8 weeks now, and it's a long time, and we think that this offer that we have presented is really good. So, yes, I'm going to talk about some ways that you all can help us, and while I'm doing that, some of our other unit members are going to be dropping some links into the chat. So the first very easy way that you can help us at this moment is to write a letter to the administrators at Columbia. So we have set up an Action Network letter site. And how this works is you will enter your information and it will send a letter on your behalf to the president, the provost, and other administrators at Columbia, telling them that you support our demands and urging them to accept the package and end the strike. Another really crucial way that people can support us is to donate to our hardship fund and spread the word about the hardship fund. Obviously, as I think has become clear, we all really want to get back to work, but a big part of maintaining our leverage and making sure that we can continue to fight for as long as necessary is making sure that we have a really robust hardship fund that has enough money to support people. We haven't been getting paid for 8 weeks, and that's very difficult. So thank you. Joanna has put a link to the hardship fund in the chat. Donating to the hardship fund, spreading the word about the hardship fund is really, really important. Yes, Amelia has also put another link in the chat for our art auction. We have put up an art auction which raises money to benefit the hardship fund. We're in the last 24 hours of the art auction, so bid now if you would like a work of art that supports striking workers. We have some really amazing stuff there and a big variety also. We have unit members, we have working artists who are supporters, we have some prints from people like Christo and Marino Marini. There's stuff at all different price ranges, and it would be, I think, a great gift if anyone is still gift shopping for Christmas or a very late Hanukkah present or whatever it may be. We have the art auction is still going until tomorrow morning. Thank you, Yuri. Put that in the chat also. Yes, Kit, exactly. It's a gift to the labor movement. So yeah, raising money for the hardship fund is really important. Another way that people can help would be to contact, if you're a New Yorker, to contact your elected officials and ask them to put pressure on Columbia University. We have a lot of wonderful elected officials in the audience who we thank so much for being here, and also other people who aren't here right now but have turned out to rallies in the past. So we have gotten a lot of support from elected officials, but if you're a New Yorker, you can call your city council member, your state senator, your assembly member, and tell them that you support striking workers at Columbia and ask them what they can do to put pressure on the Columbia administration to get them to accept this deal. Because what we really need right now is for Columbia to feel the pressure from politicians, from community members, from everyone. On that note, we're also going to include a link in the chat to our partner Toolkit. So Joanna, yes, and Yuri just put in the partner toolkit. So the partner toolkit, this is primarily intended for politicians and also people who represent organizations or labor unions, but also I encourage other people who are just here representing themselves to take a look at the toolkit as well. It has tweets and hashtags for Twitter that we're using for a big social media push to try and get this contract accepted as fast as possible. Instagram posts. There is a sample letter. If you don't want to send the Action Network letter, but instead would like to send your own letter to the administration, we have included in the toolkit email addresses for some of the administrators at Columbia who are the handful of people who could really decide to end this strike now if they wanted to. The president, the provost, the chief human resources officer, and a handful of other people who have the power to end this. So we've included emails and a sample letter that you could send to them in the partner toolkit. And the last thing I will say that you could do to help us is that this afternoon at 4:00, we are going to be entering mediation with the university again. And like we have said, we offered the university a package yesterday, I think. I've lost track of days. I think it was yesterday. We offered the university a package that we think can end the strike yesterday, and they basically told us, we'll get back to you, and we believe they're currently drafting their own counter proposal, and we're scheduled to meet with them again at 4 p.m. today. These mediation sessions are open to the public. We fought really hard to have open mediation because we think it's a key to democratic decision-making and transparency. And so we would love for people to come and join us in mediation. It is extremely eye-opening if you have never been to a mediation session before. And a big turnout at mediation, I think, shows them that people are watching and people care. And that is what we have to say about ways you can help. I see there, Carol has some questions about mediation. Yeah, the mediation is online. We don't have any in-person demonstrations planned for the time being, partially because a lot of people are traveling for the holidays, and partially because of the Omicron variant, which is going like wildfire around New York. So we don't have any in-person events planned for the immediate future, but we hope that you can come to the 4:00 mediation. With that being said, I think that we have come to the end of the planned portion or the scheduled portion of this rally.
This is an important strike which all workers in the country should support. And I think the labor movement, the AFL-CIO, the unions have the support to raise the money to pay everyone. So one of the things I think that would be useful, and we work to do this in the Bay Area with the Kaiser strike, is to get each local in New York City to commit at least one day a week or one day a month to go join the picket lines in an organized way in the labor movement, in the labor councils. So that would be a way of building support for the picket lines. The other thing is, I think there should be an appeal to the UAW to do bucket drops. When there have been strikes and lockouts in the past in the UAW, rank and file and unions have had bucket drops of their members because most UAW members are unaware of this strike to support it financially. So I would think that we could reach out, should be reached out to UAW locals to do bucket drops. The other thing is a solidarity rally with the mine workers who are also been on strike a long time together, and to bring together workers around the country who are striking so that they're not by themselves, but they're united with all the unions. And I think we should also demand the AFL-CIO, the UAW, put this strike on their front page, on their website, how they can contribute, how workers can support it. And if workers can travel to other labor councils around the country, that would be important. We want to bring workers who are on strike to labor councils around the country where they can give a direct report on their struggle and how to support their struggle. I think those are some direct things that we can do politically in the labor movement. And I support a labor party. I think workers need their own political party, and that is a real crisis that we're in, especially with the rise of fascism, as I see it. So thanks and solidarity from San Francisco. We'll do what we can to support you and get a victory in your struggle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. That's really helpful to hear your ideas, and we thank you so much for coming out. I think, Carol, you had your hand raised next.
Yeah, thanks. I'm so glad that you're doing this, and I've tried to come down to the picket line as much as I could. But I'm more wondering whether, what's the position of the full-time faculty? Because it's going to be hard unless you have the bulk of workers on the campus actually supporting you. So there should be, I'm sure there has been an appeal to them, and I'm wondering, what their response has been, and there must be also other unions on the campus other than yours. And so I really, because I work at CUNY, and I know that there's every single possible union that's on the CUNY campus. And I mean, we essentially could organize a general strike just by working at CUNY. It's probably more or less true at Columbia. I know that people have made connections with the Teamsters, which I think is just wonderful. So we should appeal to, the Teamsters Union. We should appeal to the Cleaners Union, whatever other unions that are on campus, that they need to stop working also, because this isn't just about you. I'm sure they're being screwed to the wall, equally as you are. And the only power that people have is really in unity, not just saying we're for you, solidarity, all of that, but everybody coming out together. And we need to really start to mobilize the other workers on campus who have an ability to shut stuff down. That I think getting the Teamsters to support this is just not only wonderful, but it should be the approach that I think the strikers should have, with all of the other unions, that we need to ask them to stop working as well, because, unfortunately, Bollinger is never going to agree, because he sees this as a slippery slope. And as long as he gives in, it means there'll be another shot at him, and there'll be a union. And so, he needs a punch in the face, basically, by having all the workers stopping work, and everybody should have the same, contract ending, so that it's not a question of, could you come out and support me, but we're all going to support each other because we're all going to end our contracts at the same time. And it's only through that kind of solidarity that I think that the students, workers are going to win.
Thank you so much for that, Carol. And I think Joanna Lee, who is another rank and file member of the union, wanted to speak to that and about faculty support and union support.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Carol. And I think you're right. It's, sympathy strikes are no longer a thing in many contracts, and it's been such a challenge to really think about, going on strike together across unions. And one of the things I wanted to speak about was the amazing solidarity from many of you on this call and beyond. When we shut campus down on December 8th, we had many on-campus unions come and join us. We had the Teamsters lend us their Fat Cat, I think it was called. We had so many people come out, and that moment was really one of the rare moments, I think, in the history of our union, and in the history of, at least in the last decade or so on Columbia's campus, where we saw many unions, many workers across the city, across campus come together and fight. And we need to do that more. And we have to do it again with even more people. We will do it. So I think we want to tell Columbia that you're not going to back down. And if we need to do it again, we will shut campus down again for the spring. Classes are gone for now, but in the spring, if we have to, it is something that is in the cards.
Thanks, Joanna. Okay, so JZ, you have your hand up next.
Hi, Caitlin. Hey, friends. Thank you for having me on the call. It's great to be here. Some of you might know me, some of you might not. So my name is Jay, and I I'm representative of the Workers' Assembly Against Racism here in New York City. I also am a member of Queens CSA. And so Carol and Joanna kind of just beautifully said exactly what I wanted to say, so I don't want to suck up too much time. I would just like to bold, underline, and italicize what's already been said and just sort of drive home the point that the thing that is common across all lines with bosses, right, that we all know well, is that these bastards only speak one language, and that's the language of money, right? So we have to hit them where their wallets hurt. And that we have power in withholding and, if necessary, withdrawing labor. So I'm not exactly sure what plans you might already have, besides, the plans that, Joanna's just wonderfully illustrated right now, and things that have been mentioned in the past here and there. But yeah, no, think about what a Columbia would look like without serious labor being withheld from professors, because I assume that esteemed serious faculty can't just be replaced at the drop of a hat, right? These are like working professionals that have like serious credentials that can't just disappear. The magic of tenure, yeah. But also just like imagine a Columbia that's like seriously not functioning for a week. I mean, like, I'm talking about things like, maintenance, withholding maintenance, like people not getting food on time. Like that's a really, really, really big disruption. And it gets Columbia to think like, okay, all right, customer service, right? Like we're not delivering the product, and like the chickens are coming home to roost, and, all the people who were supposed to be, especially, in terms of, looking after legacy kids, right? Like those are the sorts of target audiences who are going to find this the most disruptive, right? And so the more that you start to hear complaints from that sector of people, the bigger your chances are. And actually, the more likely you are to really be resolving this strike sooner rather than later. Because I've heard from several of you that, and no one ever wants to be on strike for this long. And I empathize with that. I'm a TA myself, and I have friends who are, graduate TAs, and I've been through the struggle myself, so I empathize in that manner. And so, yeah, just any way that you can really, 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 really drive home the point that, you're serious, you mean business, and that you want this resolved sooner rather than later, the better the chances are for that. And you'll forgive me because I'm also on the booster shot right now, so I'm not communicating my points as articulately as I want to, but I hope that made sense, and solidarity to you all, and thank you so much for having me on this call.
Thank you so much, Jay. That was really helpful and great to hear, and thank you so much for being here. I don't see any other hands. I'm going to see if anyone else wants to raise a hand. And then if not, I think we thought that we would end this call with just putting on a wonderful, wonderful video made by some of the brilliant members of our unit. Columbia, a couple weeks ago, sent out a Yule log video to help us relax in the holiday spirit. Of course, obviously, what would be most relaxing and wonderful would be if they gave us a good contract, but instead they sent out a Yule log video. So some brilliant members of our unit have made our own Yule log video. Aisha, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, thank you very much. I found out about this from Emilia and Andre. It's great to know them. Essentially, I work in a London university, and we brought together universities across the UK and student unions. But here, being an American event, it's really great listening to Farah or Jay, Carol. Everyone is just. I think there's a different kind of. You guys seem more inspirational and really energetic speakers. So if some of you could join our WhatsApp group, that would be good. I think, and 8 weeks of striking. I think in the UK we've not heard of something like that. So I think it is really inspiring. And that's about it. And coming back to Carol's point about in bringing in cleaning colleagues and security colleagues, that's one of the easiest ways to shut down. And if, I don't know the situation in the US, but in the UK, we have something called outsourcing, where cleaning and security colleagues are not even employed by most of the universities. A lot of them, in the last place I worked, we really needed to get them in-house, and that was, again, bringing people together, because with outsourcing, they get paid differently, don't get the same holidays. You're nodding. So yeah, so if you look there, you'll find a lot, and it's a very easy way of shutting the place down. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much, Aisha. And yeah, we would love to connect. You said that you have been in contact with Amelia. You could send her the link to the WhatsApp, and she could help spread it along our rank and file groups and people who are
both Amelia and Andre have been amazing.
Yes, Amelia and Andre. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, Aisha.
Thank you.
Okay, so on that wonderful note of solidarity, I think we're going to wrap things up. We did want to play the beginning of our wonderful Yule log response video, which you can stay and watch. You can leave the link. You can find this Yule log video on YouTube if you don't want to stay and watch it, but want to perhaps watch it later, because I highly recommend watching it multiple times to fully appreciate all of the puns. And with that, we'll just say thank you all so much for coming. We feel so strengthened by the support and solidarity of everyone for coming out, and it was really wonderful to see you.